So Joe Biden was on, I think, Late Night with Seth Meyers, I think is the name of the show. He had an appearance on the program very recently. So I figured I would check it out. I'm sure it would be interesting and entertaining to view. I'm expecting it to be awkward. Let's go through this.
Welcome back to Late Night. We're here with President Joe Biden. You mentioned some classified material, some documents recently leaked, some classified documents. And this isn't a gotcha show, but I do want to ask about it, that says you are currently 81 years old.
Who the hell told you that?
Yeah.
Wow. I'm shocked. I had no idea how old the president is.
It's classified. All jokes aside, according to recent polling, this is a real concern for American voters. How do you address that concern going forward as you come up to the 2024 election?
Well, a couple things. Number one,
It's interesting. He's trying to help Joe Biden pitch himself to the American people, which isn't shocking, to be honest.
you got to take a look at the other guy. He's about as old as I am, but he can't remember his wife's name.
Yeah.
And number one.
What do you mean? I don't think he ended up forgetting his wife's name, did he?
My wife, our great first lady, she was a great first. People loved her. Yeah, people love her. Oh, look at that. Wow. Mercedes, that's pretty good.
There are plenty of cognitive failures that Trump experiences, but it is being alleged that Trump got Melania's name wrong at CPAC. He did not, okay? We just have to be honest here. This went viral with the headline, Trump mistakes Melania. That's not what happened here. The organizers of CPAC are Matt and Mercedes Schlapp. Mercedes Schlapp was either right up front in the crowd or sitting on stage alongside Trump during his speech. Trump referred to Mercedes in reference to people liking Melania, but Trump is not referring to his own wife as Mercedes. We don't need to make these up, guys. We don't need to make these up. There's enough real ones. So Trump is clearly saying to Mercedes Schlapp, Mercedes, look at how much they love Melania. That's what Trump is saying. Okay.
He is losing it a little bit. So, which is kind of a shame.
Number two, it's about how old your ideas are. Look, I mean, this is a guy who wants to take us back. He wants to take us back in Roe v. Wade. He wants to take us back.
What? He wants us to go back on Roe v. Wade? We already repealed it. Maybe you forgot. Maybe you forgot. But hey, that's not a clear sign of dementia. No. What? Does he want to bring it back again? Oh, my goodness.
Back on a whole range of issues that are 50, 60 years, they've been solid American positions. And I really mean this sincerely. I think it's about the future. And every single thing we've done, I think we've got some good things done. Everything, and they told us we couldn't get them done because things were so divided. And but I think everything we've gotten done, he's just friendly stated he wants to do away with if he gets elected. And I really think his views on where to take America are older than, anyway. I don't want to get caught.
What?
You talked about bipartisanship. And you could...
Bro, why
I
did you
really
finish?
think his views
Why'd
on
you finish your thought?
where to take America are older than, anyway. I don't want to get caught.
You talked about bipartisanship and that you could actually work across the aisle when you ran in 2020. I was one of the people who thought that was maybe a foolish proposition, but you have gotten things done. Infrastructure chips, Inflation Reduction Act, some gun safety. You even got an immigration bill that passed in the Senate but never got taken up in the House. And what would you want to do? What's your 2024 agenda? Because I feel like we live in such crazy times that is one of the things I feel we hear less about.
Look, the 2020 agenda is to finish the job. For example, we're now in a position where we have the strongest economy of any major nation in the world, number one.
Is that true? That might be true, but it doesn't mean that we're growing or in the best shape, right? Like if the strongest man in the world gets fat, he might still be the strongest man in the world for a couple of days.
We got a way to go yet. Inflation's down, 880,000 manufacturing jobs. You know, we have 14 million new jobs. The unemployment rate is the lowest it's been for the longest time. We're building wealth for people. But we have to do more. First thing I have to do is stop it from being turned around. For example, you talked about the border didn't pass. Well, guess what? We're going to pass that border. It's overwhelming. The border, stop it from being.
Wait. What's he saying?
You know, we have 14 million new jobs. The unemployment rate is the lowest it's been for the longest time. We're building wealth for people. But we have to do
How is that the case? Because haven't big companies been doing lots of layoffs?
more. First thing I have to do is stop it from being turned around. For example, you talked about the border didn't pass. Well, guess what? We're going to pass that border. So
Yeah, Joe, pass that border. Yoo-hoo, woohoo, let's go. Time to pass that border. What are you talking about, man?
overwhelmingly supported by Republicans and Democrats in the House and Senate. But because I don't know this for a fact, but I was told that Trump was picking up the phone, calling the Speaker of the House saying, don't let it pass. Why? Not because he doesn't think it's good, because it will benefit Biden. That's no way to run a country. That's no way to deal. We didn't, even when we had real divisions back when I was a young senator among Democrats and Republicans. That was.
If I remember, this border deal had massive caveats for Joe Biden, giving him lots of opportunities to where he could, cancel the deal that would have secured the border, paused it, issue stays for a certain amount of months. It's a little convoluted, but there were caveats that were just bad. And many Republicans were warning, hey, we should not implement this, even when the general tenor of the Republican Party was, hey, we should implement this. But after enough negative press from, more right-leaning Republicans, all the other GOP folks wisened up and they were like, yeah, nah, we shouldn't implement this. So it wasn't that it would make Joe Biden look good. It was that it would allow Joe Biden to reverse some of the gains that would have otherwise been made by passing such a legislation.
That wasn't the way it worked. And look, I think, this is not your father's Republican Party. They got about 30% of the Republican Party controlling it all. And I think we're going to break it.
One of the things about this is not
What? Break what? What does that mean? You're going to break the party?
your father's Republican Party. It must be for somebody who's been doing this as long as you have. You can't get aid for Ukraine passed. And it seemed like for a long time, the American people agreed that Russia was the threat. And all of a sudden now you see a Republican Party that is basically refusing to aid Ukraine in their fight against. Seems like Donald Trump is saying.
All of a sudden? The GOP and conservatives have been wavering on whether or not giving aid to Ukraine is a good idea for several months, if not a year or two now. I think it's been a topic of discussion throughout the entire GOP debates. So to act like this is something that's happening all of a sudden is extremely disingenuous.
Saying Russia can do whatever they want to NATO countries.
Not
Are you
saying
shocked?
That's what he is saying.
Oh my goodness. I thought he's more informed than this. In September 2022, following Russia's illegal attempted annexations of Ukrainian territory, Ukraine reiterated its request for NATO membership. At the 2023 Vilnius summit, allies reaffirmed their commitment that Ukraine will become an ally of NATO. But Ukraine is not in NATO at the moment. So no one's saying that Russia should be able to do whatever they want to NATO nations, right? And it's generally accepted. It's generally accepted that if Putin marched onto Poland, let's say, for example, that there would be swift retaliation.
Russia can do whatever they want to NATO countries.
Not
Are you
saying
shocked?
That's what he is saying. He's been saying
I'm shocked. He's acting like he's completely uninformed on the situation. I thought he understood. See, I don't want to believe that he's lying because I like believing the best in people, but it's like it's such a simple thing to get right. that it's not that Ukraine is not in NATO, because that's been a big point of contention and discussion as well.
All along, he'd been saying it when he ran the last time. Look, the idea that any American, think about this. If I told you all there was going to be an American president who said, Putin, come do whatever you want to NATO. If the other guys on our team don't pay up every single cent they promise to pay for it. I mean, God, what are we talking about here? What in God's name? How the idea that the president of the United States is inviting Vladimir Putin to invade Western countries?
Oh my goodness, he didn't do that. What are you talking about? That's not what happened. There was some speech where he said that, like, basically, if you're in NATO and you're not paying your fair share, then why should we help you? You know, you should be paying an equivalent amount of your GDP towards NATO that we are. I think is basically what Trump was saying. And if not, hey, you know, if you're not going to pay what you owe us, then we're not going to give you what you want. It's basically what he was saying, right? Like, hey, you know, Russia can do what you want. That's a lot different than saying that he actively wants Russia to just run Russia over members of NATO.
Bizarre, absolutely bizarre, and it's totally against our interest. And by the way, I've known every major foreign leader for the longest time, and I know all these guys extremely well. They're scared to death what it means for them. For them, what it means if we walk away. Madeleine Albright was right, the former Secretary of State. She said, we are the essential nation. We are the essential nation. We don't have people fighting in those areas, but we're providing the wherewithal for them to be able to protect themselves. And it's just outrageous what he's talking about.
He talked about how he wants to be a dictator on day one, but only day one. You are someone who has dealt with dictators over the years. It does seem as though democracy, in vague terms somehow, is not easy for us to grasp. Having dealt with dictators, what do you see in a world where democracy is actually at risk in a way it might be in this election?
The first thing they do, the dictators do, is they disregard whatever the rule of law is.
By the way, I just want to cut through the fear-mongering. Democracy is not at risk. There was only one candidate who was remotely fascist in this election, who was Ron DeSantis, and he dropped out. There's no... I mean, sure, Nikki Haley said some things that made it seem like she might want to be a fascist, but no, she's not going to do anything remotely fascist if she becomes president. And I don't think Joe Biden will either. This fear-mongering is ridiculous. No, democracy is not at risk. No, this isn't the end of America as we know it if Donald Trump wins the election. These people need to calm down.
They just disregard it. Here's the guy who said...
Look. I used to fall for all of these tricks, right? I used to fall for all of these tricks. Especially back when I first started following American politics in 2008. And I'm going to be all vulnerable here and tell a very personal story. But I remember in 2008, Joe Biden, if he didn't have dementia, would remember this too, because he was on the ticket when Barack Obama won the presidential election. There was a lot of fear-mongering going on. I think I remember I was paying some attention to Sean Hannity, listening to Rush Limbaugh as well. People were talking about how Barack Obama would fundamentally reshape America and all of this stuff. How awful Obamacare would be. And, you know, when the election rolled around and Obama won, I was relatively distraught as an 8-year-old self. Might be listening to all these fearmongers in the media talk about how Obama was going to destroy the country. Now, you know, Obama did implement Obamacare, and it wasn't the best. But did it destroy America? No, necessarily. Did Obama as a man destroy America? No, he didn't. So, like, people were acting like the sky was falling all the way out throughout the entire election cycle, and then Obama became president, and it was nothing. So ever since that happened, I've been like, well, why should I listen to people if they're gonna say, oh, the sky is falling, the earth is melting, and America is going to die if the person I don't like becomes president? I feel like a lot of that's just hysteria to push for people to vote for, folks who are in their political interests. So when people say, oh, democracy is at stake, I'm like, haha, yeah, sure. No. Y'all mind about democracy being at stake, and then you won last time. So you might want to calm down a little bit there, Bucky.
Guard whatever the rule of law is. They just disregard it. Here's the guy who says he thinks he can change the Constitution and ignore it. Just ignore portions of the Constitution. Here's the guy who talks about retribution. Here's the guy, look, you have the guys, the thousands of people who stormed the Capitol. They're insurrectionists. 2 cops died.
They're not insurrectionists, no.
Other people were badly hurt. And what did he say?
One protester died as well. To be fair, she was being violent and storming through a barricade, but still.
They got convicted and or they pled guilty, and he said
many of them were overcharged. The vast majority of them should not be in jail still, I don't think. Many of them are being rightfully charged, by the way. There was that one person who was like, oh no, I'm in house arrest, and she sat in a dress in a barn while she was photographed by journalists, and right-wingers were fawning over her. And then I read that she was, smashing things, being violent towards officers, and had like a weapon in her hand or something. Like, some of these people do not deserve sympathy, no matter the political persecution that the Democrats are trying to pull. Some of these people were indeed very violent. There's no excuse for the violence that occurred.
They're patriots. God, patriots? And he says he's going to forgive them all. Every one of them is going to be released. What is?
I mean, the majority of them should be released. I think it's misguided to release them all. But I would forgive you if you decided to release all of them after seeing how this whole situation has been handled.
Well, I mean, that's what happens in Eastern European countries. That's not what happens in America. And the idea that he thinks he can do that, the idea he talks about.
He literally can. Presidents have a power called what's it called? Called pardoning. They have pardoning powers where they can, forgive someone of crimes. Ain't no one crying when he pardoned Lil Wayne and Kodak Black. But now that he wants to pardon some people who agree with him politically, now all of a sudden we have a problem. Okay.
Things like, for example, the idea that he said the Congress wants to pass an overwhelmingly a border provision that would allow us to control the border. First bill ever introduced called for that. And here he's saying, no, don't do that because that'll help.
First bill that he introduced? Joe Biden, first bill as president. On his first day of president, he implemented a federal mask mandate. I don't know if that says his first bill. Hold on, let me see. Incorporated into enacted legislation. I believe this means it was signed by the president, if I'm not mistaken, but this is H.R. 22, short title, Congressional Budget Justification Transparency Act, to amend the Federal Funding, Accountability, and Transparency Act of 2006 to require budget justifications and appropriations requests of agencies to be made publicly available. Not sure if that's anything to do with immigration. Let's just control F. Immigration. There was a bill about giving them access to counsel, giving illegal immigrants access to counsel, and I think expand workers' rights for illegal immigrants who are working on farms in March 8th. So is he just lying here? I don't know what he's referring to exactly.
That's what happens in Eastern European countries. That's not what happens in America. And the idea that he thinks he can do that, the idea he talks about things like, for example, the idea that he said the Congress wants to pass an overwhelmingly a border provision that would allow us to control the border. First bill ever introduced called for it.
I mean, there was nothing in there about a border either, was there? No. Literally, there's like nothing in here about a border. I don't know what he's talking about.
For that. And here he's saying, no, don't do that because that'll help Biden. Help Biden. It's not about Biden, it's about the United States of America. And look, I don't want to get started.
Haha. Teehee.
Yeah, I get it.
Democracy is a state.
It
really is.
I want to ask about the situation right now in the Middle East. You have forcefully spoken about the horrible events of October 7th and how Hamas is a continuing threat to the safety of the people who live in Israel. You've been trying to negotiate the release of the hostages. At the same time, you've said that the response in Gaza is too much and that the loss of an innocent life in Gaza.
Even if he agrees with that assessment, I even think that some of the things that they've done has been too much. As the president of the United States, you have to communicate that behind closed doors. You can't be running around in public saying like, "Oh, they're doing too much," and then support everything that they do. Like you can't do that. Like supporting everything public. So, for example, like the United States has not on a singular thing told Israel to stop in public as a state. It hasn't. So you can't, as a president, be like, "Oh, they're doing too many things," and then like not use their power as president to limit the things that the state of Israel is doing.
Gaza is just as horrible as the loss of an innocent life in Israel, and yet there have been calls for an immediate ceasefire. You have not supported those calls. Again, you seem like an optimistic person. You believe maybe there's a future for a two-state solution, but from where I'm sitting, it does seem like there doesn't seem to be any appetite for that right now. Do you see what is, because again, we see every day we see these horrible images out of Gaza. And is there a path forward? Is there a safe future for the people who live there?
There is a path forward with difficulty, but here's the path forward. Look, first of all, the hostages being held must be released. And if we've got at least a principle agreement, there'll be a ceasefire while that takes place. Ramadan's coming up, and there's been an agreement by the Israelis that they would not engage in activities during Ramadan as well, in order to give us time to get all the hostages out. That gives us time to begin to move in directions.
I haven't heard news about this outside of him mentioning this. Has this been confirmed? Because the dude's been known to say things publicly, and then the White House is like, nope, that's not the official policy position of ours. Or like, they're not actually doing that. So has there been confirmation that this is something that's been agreed to? If so, great. But if not,
is that a lot of Arab countries are prepared to move in. For example, Saudi Arabia is ready to recognize Israel. Jordan, Egypt, there's 6 other states. I've been working with Qatar. And the bottom line is that I think the only way Israel ultimately survives, and I make no bones about it, I get criticized for having said a long time ago, you need not be a Jew to be a Zionist. I'm a Zionist. Were there no Israel, there's not a Jew in the world to be safe. But here's the deal. They also have to take advantage of an opportunity to have peace and security for Israelis and Palestinians who are being used as pawns by Hamas. And so,
by the way, he said that he's a Zionist. The claims that Joe Biden's going to lose the election because of the Israel-Hamas war, I think, have been completely exaggerated. The types of people who are kind of calling to a ceasefire, from everything that I can gather, they seem to be a very, 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 very vocal minority. It's a relatively fringe and extreme position to say that Israel should just do a ceasefire. And as such, like, despite the fact that, like, literally there were protesters outside of the taping of this episode calling him Genocide Joe and all of that stuff, I don't think that there are enough, anti-Israel and or anti-Semitic Democrats who I don't think that there are enough of those types of people to prevent Joe Biden from winning the election. If he loses the election, it's not going to be that, or at least it's not going to be just that. It's going to have to be that plus something else.
So there's a process underway.
Because you also have to consider the fact that there's nowhere else for those voters to go. Those people who hate Israel and or hate the Jews, they're not going to just turn tail and vote for Trump instead. So it's got to be more than that to take Joe Biden down.
Way that I think if we get that temporary ceasefire, we're going to be able to move in a direction where we can change the dynamic and not have.
Oh, merely says literally 17 hours ago, an article came out quoting that. I don't know if it was confirmed. Yeah, so for me to consider it confirmed, I would say that Israel would have to say, yeah, it's confirmed we're doing this, and Hamas would have to say, yeah, it's confirmed we're doing this. Both have come out publicly and said that before with previous hostage exchanges. They've been like, yeah, we're agreeing to this, we're having a ceasefire, and we're exchanging the hostages. So Yeah, we'll have to wait on word for that. I would not take it as truth until either of those people say that that's what's happening.
A two-state solution immediately, but a process to get to a two-state solution, a process to guarantee Israel's security and the independence of the Palestinians, but without them being able to, for example, invite in, another country to provide their defenses. There's ways to do this, and I don't have time to go into it now, and in the meantime, there are too many innocent people that are being killed. And
True.
Israel has slowed down the attacks in Rafah. They have to, and they've made a commitment to me. They're going to see to it that there's ability to evacuate significant portions of Rafah before they go and take out the remainder of Hamas. But it's a process. And look, Israel has had the overwhelming support of the vast majority of nations. If it keeps this up without this incredibly conservative government they have, and Ben-Gvir and others, I've known every major foreign policy leader in Israel since Golda Meir, they're going to lose support from around the world.
True.
And that is not in Israel's interest.
They're actually already losing support from around the world. So outside of America, anti-Semitic tendencies are more prominent. So we're seeing a lot of other nations going mask off, being like, no, actually Israel shouldn't be trying to beat Hamas. They should, do a ceasefire. I think there was a massive proposal where basically all of the UN was like, Israel should do a ceasefire, and Israel vetoed it by saying no. Which honestly was kind of a Chad move, right? But yeah, Israel has already lost the PR wars. I've heard it said on the radio. And they've already kind of lost the goodwill of a lot of various nations due to how many civilians have died. And let's be clear, that's largely the fault of Hamas. I do think Israel was relatively reckless in the beginning, but let's not pretend that Hamas isn't using human shields here.
Well, I wish you the best of luck with that, because they are really horrifying scenes, and I'm happy to hear you agree with that as well. I do want to close by thanking you for something. When you were here in 2014, you gave me two gifts. First, you gave me an Amtrak whistle, and
What?
and
Okay.
it was 10 years ago. I didn't have kids yet, and I have kids now, and it's their favorite thing, and they blow it all the time, and it's really irritating, so I want to give it back.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
And
I'm not going to take it back.
we're
we're gonna
covered
give it
with
to your
germs. Also, you gave me this this conductor's hat, and this meant the world to me, because when I put it on, I realized that you didn't just buy this at a store. You obviously went out of your way. You got my hat size, because when I put it on, it was such a perfect fit. And
Let's get moving.
let's get moving. I really want to thank you so much for being here, Mr. President. It means the world
That
to
joke
celebrate.
didn't land as much as it
That's
should
President Joe
have.
Biden, everybody. We'll be right back with more Late Night.
Interesting.
Welcome
Let's see,
back,
there was
everybody.
another
We're here with
segment
my
of this
very good friend,
interview
Amy
as
Poehler. We were
well.
talking about the first show.
There's another interview, portion of this interview as well. I will say that was considerably less embarrassing than I thought it would be. I thought for sure that it would be, kind of a mess. But either they edited out the parts that were bad, or they got him the drugs he needed to perform. But yeah.
Welcome back,
I am
everybody.
also just now realizing that it completely makes sense. At first, I was like, why is Amy Poehler in this episode? But now I'm realizing this totally makes sense, because Amy Poehler started a character in Parks and Rec where there was a running gag that she had a crush on Joe Biden, so they're finally meeting.
We're here with my very good friend, Amy Poehler. We were talking about the first show back in 2014. Your fellow guest, he was kind enough to follow you that night, Vice President Joe Biden.
Yeah, that was
He
very,
was out
very
there with
special.
us,
Very
and,
special.
He was a class act.
Yeah.
We did try to get him for our 10-year anniversary show. Obviously, he got his bigger job now, so he was unavailable.
Oh, you couldn't get him?
I couldn't get him, no.
Oh, I could get him. Hey, Mr. President?
What? Okay. I didn't know he was still doing that jog thing. Oh, don't trip. Okay, good. What? This just, I feel kind of bad that like he had to be told where to sit. He's like, where can I sit? Yeah, can I sit over there? Does that work? Oh man.
Welcome back, Mr. President.
It's good to be back. Why haven't you invited me earlier?
Well, you know, you were a busy guy. Did you think when you were here in 2014 this show would make it 10 years?
No.
Yeah.
See, I'm glad he still has his like charming personality still, because like I always liked his personality. And one thing that I was kind of salty about as his dementia became very clear, like he lost a lot of like his charming personality, which is the reason why a lot of people liked him in the first place. So I was kind of salty about that. But it's cool to see him like cracking jokes and stuff. Clearly, this is probably the best he's been doing cognitively in a long time. Again, probably pumped up on some sort of drug so that he could shoot this in like 20 minutes and then get out. This is not a demonstration that he is fit enough to be in a presidential debate, by the way. But it's just a fun thing. Like, I'm going to enjoy moments of cordiality and moments of lucidity from the president for as long as we can get them, especially if he's cracking jokes.
We appreciate the honesty, you know? No, you guys actually, you've been colleagues before. You worked together. You did an episode of Parks and Recreation. We talked about it back in 2000.
forgot about
kidding
that.
me? I bragged about that all for a long, long time.
That was really fun.
That was before president. This was the best gig you ever had.
And maybe the best gig I ever had, period.
Yeah. How was the president as a scene partner?
Well, it was an awesome time to go to D.C. because we met with the then Mr. Vice President, Mr. President, Vice President, President.
That is
I
right.
don't want to get it wrong. I don't want to get it wrong. But we met people from both sides of the aisle, and then if you remember, we did that scene together, and then you said to me, how should I act? And I said, just act like, what is this lady doing here? And you nailed it.
Nice. I need to watch that episode again. Good show. Good show. I need to buy it. Put it in my
I have one.
DVD
I
Blu-ray
want to
collection.
talk. I want to look to the future, but one last glance to the past. In 2014, you had just called LaGuardia a third world airport, and you had to fly into LaGuardia to come to this show. And the only reason I bring it up is LaGuardia, much to the chagrin of late night comics like myself, is a beautiful airport now. It's a beautiful airport, and it really does speak to what infrastructure spending could do. Sometimes it takes a long time, but it's really worth it. Have you been to LaGuardia recently?
I have, but it didn't take me a hell of a long time.
Yeah.
The last guy he had infrastructure week every week.
Yeah, you did.
But we actually got it done. How can you be the leading country in the world with it ranked number 13 in terms of infrastructure?
It's not good.
Not
Out of how many countries, though? There are a lot of countries, believe me. It's like hating on like an NCAA basketball team for being ranked 5th. Like, come on. I do agree, though, we should be number 1. So, I'm not sure if we'll get there under Joe Biden's tenure.
possible.
Yeah.
Not possible. But that's not the only thing we're doing. We're getting a lot of things changed.
You got a lot of things changed, and I want to ask about that, but there's something that I've been it just speaks to the era we live in now. There's a Dark Brandon conspiracy meme. And this is something that you seem to have a lot of fun with. You've co-opted. You've co-opted Dark Brandon. This is a yard sign. And
He's not co-opted it well, though. Because the whole thing about Dark Brandon was like, initially, like, is that he was a fascist, which is from like alarmists, right, and right-wing social media. That's where the meme originated from. Then after that, far leftists were using it to make fun of the idea that he is a powerful leftist because in all honesty, he's more like a doddering fool. And then after that, the Biden re-election campaign decided to try and use it like semi-unironically to kind of be like, yeah, look at Dark Brandon getting the job done. And it just doesn't really work. He's always looked cool in his sunglasses. And to be honest, I've always been a sucker for sunglasses. You can ask people who've known me quite well. Always going to be a sucker for sunglasses. But that doesn't mean that he's intimidating or cool when he wears them.
Do you enjoy playing around with the Dark Brand meme?
No, I resent the hell out of it.
Okay.
He's actually doing a pretty good job with these jokes. They're probably pre-written, but he's doing a good job.
Now, my favorite one recently is
Yo,
there.
he's killing it with them compression socks. Let's go.
18% of Americans, according to recent polling, have believe that you and Taylor Swift are actually working in cahoots. And after the Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl, you posted this on social media and you wrote just like we drew it up. Now, I have you on the hot spot here. Can you confirm or deny that there is an active conspiracy between you and Miss Swift?
Where are you getting this information? It's classified.
Classified
It's
information?
classified
You won't share it with us?
I'm not gonna, but I will tell you, she did endorse me in 2020.
She did. I bet you might be wondering. You think it might come around again?
I told you it's classified.
It's funny.
I'm gonna ask you another question because we mentioned Parks and Rec, and Parks and Rec was a show that was about how government could actually help people, and it was a really optimistic show. Real quick though, well, do you believe any conspiracy theories?
Oh yeah, I do have one conspiracy. I think that an octopus is an alien.
Okay.
And the bottom of the sea floor is actually the top of the earth.
He's leaving. He's gonna go.
I don't know if I would have left, but I don't blame him.
Told you to stop telling people that.
So if that's wrong, don't spoil it for me.
All right, so Parks and Rec was about optimism. You, I believe, are more optimistic about this country than certainly I am, than a lot of people are. Why do you continue to be optimistic about this nation despite everything that's happened in recent years?
Look, I tell every world leader, and I mean this sincerely, never underestimate the ability of the American people. There's nothing beyond our capacity, nothing. Think about it. Every single crisis we've ever been in, we've come out stronger than we went in. Everyone. And folks, it's because of you, not because of your leaders, because of you, really and truly. America.
You know, usually this generally is the case, but we have not yet surpassed the Trumpian eras of the economy yet. So eventually we'll get there, hopefully, if we don't get nuked. We'll see.
American people are incredible. And we're the best. You know, I was asked by Xi Jinping about when I was in the Tibetan mountains with him. And he said, "Can you define America for me?" I said, "Yeah, one word." Let me close with what I've long said. America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to excuse me. Possibilities. America believes anything is possible.
Sorry. No, he played into that one. He walked into that one. I'm sorry.
By the way, people step up. People here step up, and look what's happened. We got the best economy in the world now. We got a long way to go, but the best in the world now, and we're going to get it better.
When was the last time any country had an economy better than America's?
I have a lot more to ask you about what's coming up next. You guys, that's President Joe Biden. That's Amy Poehler. We'll be back with more from President Biden.
Well, that went a lot better than I thought it would, to be honest. I thought that was kind of going to be a bit of an embarrassment, but it ended up being okay. Honestly, the person who embarrassed himself more in that entire situation was not Joe Biden, even though like he forgot some things like the fact that Roe v. Wade got passed, but was what's his name? Seth Meyers himself over here acting like like Ukraine's like a NATO country or something. It's not. It's not a NATO country. I don't know why he was acting like that. Especially since like he doesn't really get an elderly man pass because I don't think Seth Meyers has dementia. So you can't just be doing that. That was crazy.